Out of everything, horror is definitely my favorite genre across the board. I love the movies, I love the books, I love the artwork, and most importantly, I love the music. K-pop is a genre that has creatively explored so many different concepts and sounds over the years that I often bounce back and forth when trying to decide which concepts were done the best. One concept that I wish we had a resurgence of is the dark concept. More specifically, the horror concept. Since today is Halloween, I wanted to explore which horror concepts were done the best and which ones left the biggest impact on me personally. Obviously, I can't cover every single time the horror concept has popped up, since there have been some groups who have successfully made it their entire identity. So, for this video, I would just like to discuss the music videos and songs that really caught me off guard and forced me to sit up and pay attention. So, with that being said, let's start with Okay, so I wanted to start with a group and a song that is a little lesser known, mainly because to understand why this song hit so hard for me personally, you have to understand why it hit so hard. Before Ghost, DreamNote wasn't the kind of group to do concepts like this. Their debut is such a complete 180 from Ghost that if you put both the music videos side by side, you would never guess that this group would be the same one that would put out something like Ghost. Here I was bopping my head to DreamNote, which is also strangely the name of their debut, and then randomly Ghost came out of nowhere blasting. I really like seeing groups express their duality like this. I like seeing them getting to tap into their full potential as performers and show us that they aren't one note. And Ghost was a concept that I just did not expect to see from a sugary sweet cutesy group like DreamNote. It would honestly be like Twice going from doing something like Cheer Up to suddenly deciding to do a Terrifier concept immediately afterwards. If you have ever seen this disturbing ass horror movie, then you would understand why it would be super random for Twice to do a concept like this. And that's just how jarring DreamNote's switch up was. Ghost decided to give us Crimson Peak, and I had no problem with that. Anyway, I love Ghost more than words can express, and though they have since gone back to their softer and brighter concept, I have to give praise to them for trying to do something different. Speaking of groups that have stepped outside their comfort zone, we cannot just walk past Nature and what they did with the song Girls. I've mentioned this song in previous videos and how much I absolutely love it, and not just for its horror concept, but also for its sound. This song is a horror fan's fever dream. The imagery here reminds me so much of one of my favorite anime movies of all time, Perfect Blue. We see women in peril running from one hellish scenario to the next. We get minimalist but beautiful set design done right with a smaller budget. And we get a song with lyrics so heartbreakingly relatable that it's hard not to see yourself in them while listening along. The perspective of being someone in a relationship with someone else who isn't as interested is depressing. Especially when you have the main character of this song admitting how desperate they are to be loved, even if it's by someone who doesn't feel the same way. Now, none of you may agree with me, but Girls is masterful and unfortunately was paid dust when it was released. Very few people even still remember its existence today, and it didn't do much for the group domestically, even though some international fans acknowledge it from time to time. It's pretty much become a K-pop relic at this point, and many people today only discover it by accident or by word of mouth. And it's a shame, because I naively believe that if anything would finally break Nature out of their Nugu status, then it would have been Girls. And yet here we are, 4 years later, following their recent disbandment, reminiscing about one of the greatest songs in K-pop. This song will forever be one of the greatest debuts in K-pop for me. It did everything that a debut should do, establish a sound and identity for the intended group, show off the group's strengths, and get people to ask questions. Though sadly, Pixy has unofficially disbanded recently, I still hold on to the belief that their discography is one of the best in K-pop. They took the horror genre and really made it their own. to help them stand out from the noise of other groups who have done the horror genre in the past. Wings is also one of the very few music videos that has managed to genuinely creep me out. As someone who is very hard to scare, this caught me off guard. Though I love horror as a whole, one thing that will most definitely get under my skin quicker than anything else is demonic whispering. Now, this is gonna sound silly as hell, but whispering in general tends to make me super uncomfortable. I don't like it in songs and I don't like it in real life, which is the main reason why I avoid ASMR like the plague. Because I just hate the idea of someone in my ear. It makes my flesh crawl and it's a personal negative for me specifically. And this song did it. There are a couple sections where they stopped the song to do this, and when I first heard it, I almost turned it off. But luckily I didn't, because despite that, this is one of my all-time favorite K-pop songs. Now, let's move on to a bit of a subsection of the K-pop horror concept. The songs I'm about to discuss next are songs that aren't blatantly aiming for a dark concept in the stereotypical sense, but they still possess some very subtle horror-esque elements that were weaved into a storyline that carries on throughout the music video. These next few songs are what I would say are the most clever instances of the horror concept previously done in K-pop. And we'll start with this one in particular. Okay, so I could not make a video like this without mentioning Red Velvet. These women are the queens of versatility and have done some very horror-esque comebacks that don't explicitly scream horror. Anytime they've announced the comeback, I know that I'm at least going to be impressed by how they choose to present whatever concept they end up doing, even if I don't ultimately end up liking the song. Peekaboo is one of those instances. It wasn't my absolute favorite title track by them, but I love how it was used in this music video, especially with the very subtle edge of horror comedy. Having Red Velvet being this cult of women hunting down pizza boys in this super tongue-in-cheek B-horror movie way reminded me of the plots of so many of my favorite horror comedies over the years. I was instantly reminded of The Babysitter, and I appreciated Peekaboo for channeling that kind of energy. I love Red Velvet for always being the kind of group with an identity that allows them to explore genres and concepts in a way that no other group is currently capable of doing. Now, don't get me wrong, we do still have some groups that are very versatile, but they are not doing it the same way Red Velvet does it. I can't think of a single other group that could have done Zimzalabim. Meanwhile, Red Velvet jumped in with both feet into that era with a charming sense of quirk that has never been duplicated by any other group. And while we're on the topic of subtle horror, we need to talk about that one time GFriend decided to become a coven of witches and seduce us. This is honestly one of the best random concept changes that I've personally ever seen in K-pop. Again, I'm most likely in the minority on this because GFriend's initial super pure concept is what made them who they are, especially since they were doing this concept as a third-gen group during a time when nearly every other group was veering away from this kind of concept. Apple would mark the first major concept change for them. It was the first time that we would see a more mature side of them, and they decided to go with this dark, dreamy, psychedelic funk pop sound that I'm almost certain has never been done by any other group before or afterwards. Now, as I stated earlier about girls, Apple is an even more beautiful, dark fever dream that just sort of entrances you. Its horror elements are so subtle that you would likely not even notice them if you weren't looking for them. The whole thing just kind of makes you feel a little uneasy with this eerie hunting and Bly Manor set design, the mild biblical references, and the contrasting color scheme of darkness to light, almost as if the music video is showing the members surrender to the dark side right before our eyes. They were once these angelic beings, and now they're being slowly engulfed by darkness with the explicit intent to hypnotize and seduce the audience. And I have to say that it worked for me. I count Apple as another one of K-pop's ignored masterpieces. I love everything that went into this comeback, the symmetrical choreography, the vocals, this eerie little sorceress dance that Sinbi decided to do toward the end of the music video. I love every aspect of Apple, and I really wish that this song had gotten a little more attention when it came out. And finally, of course, we could not end this video without talking about the horror queens themselves, Dreamcatcher. These women are one of K-pop's most inspirational underdog groups for me. They are the absolute blueprint to follow when conducting a major concept overhaul for a group, in my opinion. Had you shown me these two pictures side by side a few years ago, I would never have guessed that they were the same group. I know that K-pop fans love to shit on companies, mainly because a majority of the time the companies do deserve it, but I gotta give credit where it's due here. I cannot just ignore the work that Dreamcatcher's company put into them. Instead of just disbanding the group after seeing Minx underperform, Dreamcatcher Company, previously known as Happy Face Entertainment, actually put forth the proper research and development into figuring out what Dreamcatcher's strengths were, and how to make them stand out both individually and as a unit. Now, I don't know if it was because the CEOs had more money, passion, or just more time to invest in the overall development phase. But it's obvious from what I've seen this group become over the last few years that their company definitely does seem to care about them as a group. If any group needs a Netflix behind-the-scenes documentary, then it's Dreamcatcher, because I would love to see the group's journey from pre-debut to now, with interviews from people on their development and marketing team. For them to reroute the group in a way that works for all of the members with a concept that has popped out bop after bop, this took some serious care and passion. From Chase Me to Piri, Scream, What, Boca, and Because, this group has consistently nailed the horror aesthetics in a way that has never felt inauthentic or as if they were trying to jump on some type of trend. All of the members have their roles in the group and they all play them perfectly. Xion is one of the best main vocalists in K-pop who consistently goes underappreciated whenever people pull out their ranking scales. Just the lore alone in Chase Me, You and I, and Good Night could be expanded into a full-length horror K-drama miniseries. As a horror fan and a K-pop fan, I love this group's creativity and whoever is behind their branding, their cinematography, their choreography, and just the entirety of their discography. I personally believe that they have done a spectacular job at establishing Dreamcatcher as a group that will go down in K-pop history as one of the very few groups who have never been afraid to stray away from the usual. Though this harder rock sound intermixed with this horror-esque branding that they started with was far from popular at the time of their debut, they've held strong all these years later and refused to change their color for the sake of reaching for something that would skyrocket them to popularity quicker. And so, to the horror queens of K-pop, I have to say thank you. You've done a very good job. And thank you guys for watching. I had no idea what I wanted to do with this video. I just know that I wanted to do something horror related for Halloween that would also be relevant to the channel, and I honestly couldn't think of anything else, so I went with combining my two favorite things, horror and K-pop. Feel free to tell me what your favorite K-pop horror concepts are, and the songs that were born from them. I'm pretty sure that I've missed many, and I also need some more to put on my own personal playlist.